Dear friends, my name is Operator Starsky and this is day 999 of Russia's disastrous invasion of Ukraine. The aftermath of the terror Russian missile strike took civilian lives all over Ukraine. The global Russian disinformation campaign linked to the Russian Ministry of Defense. Turkish Prime-Minister Erdogan presented his peace plan. Germany provides Ukraine with lethal drones. And most importantly, Ukraine was given a green light to use the Western weaponry to strike Russia. But can we celebrate yet? Dear viewers, we will talk about the most recent updates in the Frontline focus right now. Over the past 24 hours, Russian terrorists launched more than 130 missiles and 100 kamikaze drones aimed at critical civilian infrastructure of the Ukrainian cities. Yesterday's strike took lives of 10 civilians, including 2 kids, in Sumy. More than 50 were wounded. 1 person died in Lviv, 2 received injuries. 2 women died in Mykolaiv, 7 civilians, including a child, were wounded by the Russian terrorists. Also, Kherson was under Russian fire. Several buildings were damaged, 4 civilians died, 10 injured as a result of the Russian strike. On the front line, the Russian invaders advanced in Chasiv Yar and Kurakhove. The sources from the ground yesterday reported a heavy combat that took place in the outskirts of Chasiv Yar, with more than 100 Russian invaders eliminated in a traditional Russian meat assault. However, due to the overwhelming manpower thrown into this attack, the Ukrainian defenders had to move back. In total, 42 attacks were deflected around Kurakhove yesterday and 32 around Pokrovsk. In Zaporizhia, where another Russian advance is prepared according to the data from the South Operative Command, more than 20 Russian invaders were eliminated by the Ukrainian artillery. Not sure about the exact time when it happened, but I think it was a HIMARS time. In Kursk Oblast, Russian terrorists keep losing men and equipment, trying to push the Ukrainian soldiers out of the region. On Saturday, Ground Forces Command shared a video showing 17 Russian vehicles being destroyed while trying to break through the minefield in the area. The German journalists from the project Correctiv, investigating the global Russian disinformation campaign known as Doppelganger, traced the executors of this campaign to the Russian Ministry of Defense and stolen toilets. Basically, Russians created a bunch of fake websites mimicking legit news outlets in the US and Europe that were used to feed you with all that crap about Ukraine mobilizing children and things like that. So the journalists found a specific IP address utilized by the executors and creators of this campaign that led the investigators to the Russia's State Department of Communications of the Ministry of Defense of the Terrorist Federation. Even specific user of this IP was identified as Vadim Lukyanchenko, an employee of the Russian Ministry of Defense. You can find the link to the investigation in the description, and frankly speaking, the scale of this campaign is absolutely terrifying. Team Pool and Tenet Media comparing to this is just the tip of the iceberg. Imagine all those most toxic supporters of the Russian terrorism from around your neighborhood who were daily fed the content produced by the Russian officers sitting in Moscow. Zelensky buys yachts and castles, Ukraine mobilizes home pets, American biolabs. I mean, of course, it's not that hard to brainwash Western citizens if you spend billions of dollars on creating fake websites instead of renovating Russian hospitals and building roads. According to Bloomberg, Turkish Prime-Minister Erdogan will present his vision of peace plan for Ukraine. Among the key points of this plan, there's such things as demilitarized zone in the East Donbass, deployment of the international peacekeeping troops, continuing military support for Ukraine, and freezing the process of Ukraine entering NATO for 10 years. Friends, let's break it down. First of all, the idea of freezing the process of joining NATO is actually interesting. You know, as a Ukrainian, I don't really see my country joining NATO in the nearest 10 years because we were never given a green light on that on the first place. Neither the previous NATO Secretary General nor the new one as much as I respect them personally, but they have never promised Ukraine the membership. We've had numerous military exercises together with NATO troops. I personally participated in those back in my days, but the decision to join NATO is completely political. And unfortunately, some specific Western politicians either lack courage or receive payroll from Kremlin. Therefore, this point in Erdogan's plan is absolutely obvious. Also, Putin may not survive the next 10 years. I mean, the dude is old, and like a true mafioso, he lives a dangerous life. Literally anything can happen. For example, he may choke while kissing a boy's belly, or acquire bird flu, or get worms while making out with animals. He's old and crazy. Therefore, this point seems completely legit. Second thing, the idea of international peacekeepers patrolling the demilitarized zone in the eastern Donbass, I believe that this idea is already a failure. The Russians own the UN Security Council and they will never agree to send peacekeepers to Ukraine. Otherwise, they would be here like back in 2022. The main intention of Russians is not to stop the war in Ukraine. They want to win in Ukraine and destroy the nation. They don't want the Donbass. They want Ukraine and Finland and Estonia and Poland and Eastern Germany, Alaska, etc. The politicians who want to negotiate with Putin will always fail because they don't understand this simple fact. Russia hasn't invaded Ukraine because they didn't want war. They invaded Ukraine because war was their main intention. One has to be extremely freaking stupid thinking that Russia invaded a foreign country and keeps striking its schools and hospitals every single day because Russians don't want war. Now switching to the main topic. Yesterday, several media outlets, including the New York Times and Reuters, reported that the US President Biden allowed Ukraine strike Russian targets with long-range ATACMS. And already several leaders, including Lithuanian President Nausėda, celebrated this historical decision. But as much as I would like to join the celebration, there's several key things to remember. First of all, it doesn't mean that Ukraine will suddenly start annihilating Russian strategic military factories and air bases. This decision was made as a response to the DPRK's involvement in the Russian aggression against Ukraine. Therefore, obviously, the missiles will be only used on the territory of Kursk Oblast, strictly against the Russian and DPRK personnel. Unfortunately, we are not talking about striking really important targets like oil refineries or ammo production facilities, etc. We are talking about the personnel and possibly local ammo storages. That's the reason why in the yesterday's speech President Zelensky said that you don't conduct strikes with words. Such things are not something that is announced. Which basically meant don't open champagne before New Year, be realistic. But at the same time, there's one thing that we can do, my friends. Please monitor the opinion makers screaming about the escalation in the internet, because already yesterday a bunch of Russian authorities and spokesmen like Jabarov or Peskov made those spooky statements that striking Russian targets will lead to the World War III, meaning that Russia can basically escalate as much as it likes and it will not lead to the World War III, but when you fight back, it will, which is a favorite Russian fairy tale. Check out who among your local politicians make similar statements, and I guarantee that you will find a paid Russian asset. Let me know if you already found one. It was announced that Germany will deliver 4,000 strike drones to Ukraine. The drones are equipped with AI and have increased immunity against the Russian electronic warfare. They can operate at a range of up to 100 kilometers and cost much cheaper than Russian Lancet drones or NATO Switchblade drones. And they will be shipped to Ukraine already in December. With that, my friends, I wish you all a beautiful day. Please like and subscribe. And let's continue the conversation in the comments. I'm Operator Starsky. As always, be safe.